Ooh, man. Hey, Monday, homeroom. Yeah, and Labor Day though, too. Johnny Lupinacci, Jacob, chairman of the board. Busted pencils though. Yeah, that's what you're listening to. Fully leaded education talk, educated educators talking education. So, yeah, first and foremost, it is Monday. It is a holiday, Labor Day. Thank you, everybody out there who has, been given their labor. But, big thumbs up to particularly to all of those labor unions out there and those workers that make, well, that were behind giving us this holiday so that even people like Tim, Johnny, and Jacob can get a day off because, hey, guess what? Here's the secret. We're not actually recording this show on Monday because it is a holiday. So it is Labor Day. Celebrate and go out. However, if you are listening to this show on Monday, um, it's we haven't, Johnny, as Johnny said, we were talking before the show, we haven't had to do a show like this in a long time, and
I hate
it's a
it, Tim. I hate
yeah,
it. For a while, we were
yeah,
doing them all the time,
I know.
and then we said we can't do this all the time because
It
it's
was
beginning to be like part of the problem,
what
and yet though we can't not do it,
you can't
right?
not,
So
yeah, so you can't not do it. So what are we talking about? Well, at this point right now, Minnesota Catholic school, um, 2 children killed, 17 people injured in a shooting in Minneapolis Catholic school mass. So, again, people are going, well, it wasn't in the school. It wasn't a school shooting. It was through the no, it was a school shooting. It was targeted. The students going to that Catholic school having a mass to begin their back to school. And from what we can tell at this point, the shooter did have a connection to the who graduated. Yeah, I just wanted to make sure my facts were there. Graduated from this school in 2017, came back now and did what we said, the unthinkable, the
I
horrible
hate it,
thing,
man.
which is, yeah, killing innocent people in some form of a rage, Johnny,
Another
again,
school shooting, Tim.
another, yeah, it's another school shooting, and here we go again. And everybody's gonna figure out this and that, and
Yeah.
there's a manifesto out. There's all these things going on, and probably I would say by next week's classes in session, it could be that we really need to do a deeper dive on this one, Johnny, because
I
we'll
mean, we
know. Well,
haven't done the show in a
yeah,
while where we talk about like, are we really going to get down into the roots of
yeah,
this problem? And not and I'm not when I say this problem, I'm not going to get into like who did it or why they specifically did it in a single incident, but why we have a real, like crisis as a country
hmm,
around, the fact that every kid going to school has to fear getting shot. Every teacher thinks about it. Tim, you and I got the privilege of being teachers,
right.
and we didn't think about
Now,
this. I mean, it had happened when I had become a teacher. It had just recently, we had Columbine, and as we learn now, got a lot of misinformation about that as well. But, they weren't, it wasn't something on my mind
mm-mm,
as a teacher regularly. I don't think my parents over worried about
no,
that or had that as a concern on a day-to-day basis. Now, certainly as a kid growing up in Detroit, gun violence was a
mm-mm.
worry that parents had. But I mean, like this is territory that is worthwhile of taking on in a class in session. And we've done shows on it before, and we always say, hopefully we won't be having this show anymore, but
Right.
not without significant changes from those in power, leaders who can say enough is enough, because kids have said that.
Hmm.
Certainly, the youth of this country have spoken loudly about their concerns around school shootings. Teachers speak loudly about it. We've had whole shows where teachers
Hmm.
from different states with different gun laws and all kinds of different rules have, called in and shared their experiences. School leaders, but again, much like last week's, we had, if you listened on Saturday, great show with Representative Cruz. talking
Mhm.
about bipartisans and needing our leaders to support funding schools. I'm just going to say it bluntly, Tim, and we could get into it later this week. When is it going to be enough for our leaders to really put their foot down, bipartisan, say we care about kids, yes, funding them adequately, but also ensuring their safety in schools? And that doesn't mean more security. It doesn't mean, an armed guard at every door. It simply means stricter regulation
Mm.
around, dare I say, guns,
Mm.
right? Like, I'm going to go there, and I'm not anti-gun, and I'm not trying to challenge constitutional rights here, because I may surprise people on where I land with those things, but you can have both. And several other countries and several other moments in our history, we've had those, and they have that right now. And I think it's something every kid, every parent, every teacher in this country deserves.
Yeah. I mean, you said it so much um, in there, and here we are talking about it again. We said we don't want to do these, but Johnny, you made me think though for this homeroom to kind of, as we look at this, yeah, what you remember. I had gotten out of teaching even before Columbine. I was, fully on my way to becoming, Professor Tim Slecker when Columbine happened. And again, that was a tragic moment. But it didn't create a sense of fear as much as that was a sense of shock that went across. But Johnny, this sense of being frightened, I mean, this is really in the last, come on, let's be honest here. Maybe 5 to 7 years where one after another, after another, after another, maybe, to me, kind of like where it really amped up was Parkland. And, I had a friend and colleague whose son survived the Parkland school shooting, who was, we interviewed her and another mother from Parkland about going through a school shooting like that. And after that, it just seemed to happen so often. And John, you say, like, I didn't have the fear. No, I didn't have, my parents never had the fear. But a weird thing, and maybe we can get into this too, on Wednesday. My son will say he didn't really feel that too much, but my daughter actually said that was something that she really thought about in a way that was really troubling. And I actually was surprised because when they were in school as a parent, I didn't worry about it yet as a parent. Um, so yeah, at what point does it cross over to going like, yeah, it's a real concern, it's a real worry? Um, and I think it was on the show when actually was it, man, I forget when what it happened, but the school shooting in Madison, Wisconsin. Um, and if I'm remembering that, I think that was just in May, um, when we were talking about that one, and it came very pointed that how many degrees of separation are all of us from having some connection to a school shooting? You know, I know a parent whose child survived and in fact was one of the opt-out organizers with us, and each time every one of these happens, you start to find more and more people who say, December 24. Yeah, thanks, Jacob, for putting up there the Madison shooting. You find more and more people who are like, well, my cousin, my friend, my aunt. There's no longer this, well, that happened over there. It'll never happen to us. The degrees of separation to a school shooting, and every person in America now is kind of going like, it's a reality and a real concern. And imagine, again, the mental health issues here. So, hate to talk about this on a holiday, Labor Day, but here we are again. And Johnny, I think you're saying Jacob will get this ready on Wednesday to kind of dig in, and you know, because on Wednesday we're going to know a lot more. We're going to see where all the fingers start pointing for sure, and I think we want to analyze where those fingers are pointing and kind of say, okay, who's got this issue? But you know, I mean, yeah, it's a horrible thing. What could have stopped it? People are like, there's no time to be thinking and saying that about right now. It's yeah, actually it's way past time. This whole idea, it's too soon. No, it's not too soon. It's not too soon to say, you know what? Um, I'm done. We're gonna do this. We're gonna fix it. Maybe on a lighter note, it reminds me though of a comedian, really raunchy, but Jeff Jeffries, or I think that's his name, from Australia.
Jim Jeffries.
Jim Jeffries, thank you. But he did I think this is around 2017, one of his stand-up routines where he's like, hey, in America, school shootings, he's like, in Australia, we had one. And the answer was the guns. And we got rid of all the guns. And it was kind of funny, but at the same time, he was just like, for some reason, and what he was doing in his bit was pointing out the absurdity of American gun laws and how we react to it. So maybe we can look more and more, gun laws representatives. There's a mental health issue here so much. There's again, the fear it's going to create with parents, the trauma, the post-traumatic effect for the survivors, so much going on there. But on this Monday, on Labor Day, that we're having a holiday, hey man, keep the guns. Let's put them away. Make them safe. Hide them. I'm just,
Put 'em
I just,
hide them like Easter eggs. Put them all over the yard.
no, I did. It's just,
That may be a
it's
bad
just-
idea.
Keep them in the bushes.
Lock them up. Find those safe ways to keep them, because it is access, and we don't know again what's happened here yet. We'll know a lot more on Wednesday for sure when we're talking about this. But hey, Busted Pencils, happy Labor Day. Be safe. Enjoy the time off that you deserve. And those essential workers who are still out there on Monday, man, thank you for actually continuing to do the jobs that you do on, quote, holidays. Johnny.
Yeah, and all you teachers, whether you're already back in your classroom or you're headed back there this week, it's labor, right? It's Labor Day, and part of this, especially here, blue collar scholars, Busted Pencils. Hopefully you're enjoying your Labor Day, and thank you for all the work you do in our community, to invest in our future citizens.
Nice. And now it's time for your moment of Zen. Education becomes most rich and alive when it confronts the reality of moral conflict in the world.
Thanks for listening to Busted Pencil's Homeroom podcast today. And remember to grab great other podcasts with more Busted Pencils content on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course, you can always find us on the Civic Media website or on our website, bustedpencils.com. And don't you dare miss class in session on Wednesday, and look out for the special drop of Producer's Choice on Friday. And of course, you can catch Busted Pencils on Saturdays at 3 p.m. Central Time across all the Civic Media Network stations for 1 hour of your favorite blue-collar scholars, Tim and Johnny, and keep Busted Pencils.